Well, there's a question that I've been getting a lot lately. People will say, I've been watching your channel for a while now and I really want to grow some houseplants in my fish tank like you're showing me, but I'm worried about these plants being toxic for my cats. Are there any cat-safe, non-toxic houseplants that I can grow in my fish tank? And the answer is yes. And today on Plant Life Project, I want to give you 10 of these non-toxic houseplants that you can grow in your fish tank. I'm going to share some growing tips for each one and go over a few frequently asked questions. But first, I need to warn you about a few very popular houseplants, or riparian plants in this case, that are toxic to cats, dogs, and people if they are ingested. And these plants include, but are not limited to, pothos, peace lily, monstera, philodendron, and lucky bamboo, which is unfortunate because all these plants are excellent nitrate removers in a fish tank and they provide so much beauty, but they have toxic substances like calcium oxalates and others which can cause major gastrointestinal problems, organ failure, and even potentially death in cats and dogs if they are ingested. But thankfully, there are some non-toxic plants that we can grow in our tanks to add that new dimension to fish keeping that are also going to be safe for our cats. And all 10 of these plants are listed on the ASPCA, or American Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals website, which has a very helpful and extensive plant list that you can search to see whether a plant is labeled as toxic or not for pets. And I'll be sure to include a link down in the description of this video to that website. The first plant is parlor palm. It easily adapts from being a potted plant, and it is typically sold as many individual plants all bunched together in one pot. But you can easily divide them, wash the soil off the roots, and set them in the water. But be sure to space them out because they can crowd each other as they grow taller. I thinned out about half of what was originally here because of that. And because they get so tall, they can also shade out smaller plants below. So keep that in mind. Dwarf umbrella sedge. It's an excellent pond plant and nitrate remover in a fish tank and is easily propagated by division or by bending a stalk with seeds over into the water, and in a few weeks new plants will sprout. It grows best in high light but is tolerant of low light conditions, and it can grow up to 4 feet tall, so it's a good choice for a large tank. Spider plant. This popular houseplant is easily started in a fish tank from the small plantlets that grow from the stems of the parent plant. For me, it gets started best with the crown, which is where the roots and the leaves meet, are kept out of the water. I just let the roots grow down into the water and they adapt readily and will eventually grow all the way down to the substrate in a shallow tank. Purple waffle plant, which is available in a few different varieties. This plant roots easily from stem cuttings but will also adapt from a potted plant. I like to use it as a filler plant to add some color variation. Money tree. Often sold in a braided form, the individual plants can be taken apart or left together. It adds, let's say, unique leaf texture and effect in a riparium. I have adapted mine from potted plants and they took a few months to adapt, but they have been well worth it. Polka dot plant. Available in multiple colors, it roots easily from cuttings or adapts from a potted plant, and like the purple waffle plant previously mentioned, it makes a great filler plant. Nerve plant, or Photonia, available in white or pink vein forms. This is one of my favorite leaf patterns. It's so mesmerizing. This can be rooted from cuttings, but I've had better luck just adapting the potted plant. Maranta and Calathea, both known as prayer plants. You will not find more intricate leaf patterns for a riparium. They're almost fantastical. Unfortunately, these have not been long-lived plants for me in a riparium, usually about 1 year, but still totally worth it. I keep potted plants and take cuttings from them to use in the riparium and let them root, and so I always have a ready supply. And this is a practice I use for many plants, whether they are long-lived or not. just to ensure that I always have backup and supply for future projects. Phalaenopsis moth orchid. Surprisingly, these epiphytes can grow quite well in a riparium, and for me, grow best raised slightly above the waterline with the roots still touching the water. And here it is in a planter with lava rock, sphagnum moss, and leca. Will my cats still try to eat these plants? Well, each cat is an individual, in case you haven't noticed, and some are going to have more of a tendency to chew on plants than others. So really only you can answer that question for your cat. Even though these plants are considered non-toxic and cat safe by the ASPCA, it's still advisable to keep these plants out of reach of your pet as much as possible, which is difficult because let's face it, cats are ninjas. So how do I actually grow these plants in my fish tank? Well, you can take these potted plants out of the container, wash off the roots thoroughly, and adapt them to grow in the water over time. Or you can take cuttings from many of these plants and root them in the fish tank. Now there's a video for each one of these methods that you can check out that will go into more detail and help you get started. How much light do these plants actually need? All 10 of these plants are pretty much considered low light houseplants. However, in my experience, I've found that they do best if they have a supplemental grow light or even just a regular household LED light bulb. Check out the Riparium lighting video to learn more about lighting requirements and to see which lights I actually use. Well, if you have any other questions, please let me know down in the comment section below. And please let me know what you think about this video. I would love to hear from you. Be sure to watch those other videos I mentioned earlier. Those should help you get started. And thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.